Hello and welcome to today's webinar. We are excited to bring you the topic, why server-based execution is a game changer. My name is Tiffany Marsing and I am the support manager for the Americas. And your presenter today is Sigrid Koch, and she is a principal solution engineer. Sigrid?
Thanks, Tiffany. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope everybody is doing well, working from home today. Let's get started. So the agenda is why would we want to consider server-based processing? We'll cover a few use cases that we've run into where our customers are using server-based processing, and then cover the options, some best practices, as well as considerations for using it. So why would we want to do something like this? Again, many of us are working from home. I happen to have been doing it full time for the last 10 years, so I know what other people are running into. Sometimes it's slow Wi-Fi speed. Sometimes, it's a matter of IT wanting things to be run within the company's firewall to be more secure. And, if you're going to process potentially a lot of data, and again, we'll get into the use cases, sometimes you want to be able to schedule that, and for desktop scheduling, again, we'll cover that as well. You would need to be logged in and make sure that you're connected to the network in order for that to kick off. So a lot of reasons why working from home would be a good use case for using server-based processing. We want to be able to preserve the SAP performance during business hours. Again, if you're doing either large extracts or large postings, you might want to schedule that to run off hours, maybe Friday at midnight. So that's another use case for running on the server. Of course, timeliness, and this applies for everything. You want to be able to load or update your data, be able to get to the right data to make good business decisions and have quality data so you can avoid any kind of issues and have happier partners like customers and suppliers. And then scheduling refreshes. So for some of our customers, those include some kind of internal extract for reporting, for auditing, or potentially for data sources that are used in forms and workflows, and that can be used as reference data or some kind of a SQL table. So that's another reason to do server-based processing and schedule it so that it happens on a recurring basis. As I'm going along, I didn't mention it earlier, please make sure that you enter in any questions into the chat box. We'll be covering them toward the end, or if I have any pauses, Tiffany will be bringing them up, and we'll be happy to answer them as we go along. So some use cases for transaction or direct. Journal entries. So people have a very short time window to do a high volume of entries. Running these on the server would make this a much faster process. Price updates, and oftentimes those are pretty high volume, particularly these days with all of the fluctuations in the market and competitive pressures. Pricing updates are a big use case. New product introduction and getting them on time to market, whether it's creating products, extending where you actually make them, or all of the associated objects that go along with the products like BOMs and pricing and characteristics and so forth. So being able to process those quickly. M&A activity, whether you're actually merging or divesting. In the case of merging, loading those customers, suppliers, and products quickly. And again, you would want to do that potentially off hours to preserve that SAP performance. Migration to any SAP system, and these days S/4HANA is a big topic. So you could schedule any kind of moves of data or processing. You might be at a point where you're straddling systems, so you might still be on ECC and yet have to post to S/4HANA as well. So posting to both, you can schedule the post for both systems to happen off hours. And then, as I mentioned in a number of cases here, any kind of mass processing where you've got a lot of data either posting or extracting, like material extensions, updating payment terms, updates to POs or sales orders, really virtually anything that you're doing with One Shuttle could be a candidate for server-based processing. From the query side, they fall into a number of buckets. So data quality, being able to extract the data to review it, extract the data to make updates, what we call a round trip, or extracting for up-to-date data sources, as I mentioned earlier. Also for auditing, so we have a number of customers who basically query the changelog, and I'll have an example of that for vendor payment terms. And and you could do it for the past week, the past month, the past day. So key data elements that anybody that has changed, you could pull that data for an audit report. Anything operational, like sales orders that haven't shipped, or plant maintenance orders that haven't been completed, or inventory levels of key products or materials or parts. That's another good use case for query and processing them on the server. And then any kind of analysis, whether it's analysis of what you've done with WinShuttle, for auditing purposes, analysis of any of the data or trends that are going on. Again, a lot of different use cases for query. And query tends to be, at least it has recently, something that comes up more and more for server-based processing. So let's take a look at, before we go to that, let's take a look at some examples. So I have a number of them open. So this one is for vendor payment terms, and this one happens to use a workflow associated with it. So it's doing an extract, and then that extract could be scheduled on the server. Then you can make whatever updates you need and post those updates to SAP, again, running on the server. Let me hop over to another one. So this one is querying on sales orders that haven't yet closed. And in a demonstration system, we have a lot of those. So it's pulling out some of the key data like sales order, date created, sales org, who we sold it to, what the material is, the quantity, and then there's some status fields here. And I pulled in what the status actually means. And then what you can do is very simply, once it's pulled, and again, run on server, and you can run that periodically. You can create a pivot, and it can be anything. I did this across months so that you can check to see what's going on with those particular sales orders and the statuses. And I'm not an expert at pivots. You can make something a whole lot simpler. So once you do the extract, you simply refresh the data. So this is one. You can also use something like this for a round trip where maybe you're pulling this data so that you can update the quantities or update the price or a price condition or the delivery dates, text, all kinds of stuff. So this kind of extract has a dual purpose. Talk to another one. Here, this one is for creating materials. It's a pretty simple one, but only a little bit of data, but you could create and or extend a lot of material. Let's see. This was the changelog report that I created. So there's a couple of tables, and it will list the vendor number in this case, the transaction, who did it, what date, what time. This happens to be the company data and the field, and that it was updated. This was the old value, and this was the new value. So these kinds of reports happen often, or customers do these often. So one more. Oh, here's one for pricing. So this one is a round trip. You could schedule the report on the server and then come in here and make whatever changes. And this is using some formulas with a percentage and date. So again, you could change this on top and then schedule to run the updates on server as well. So just want to give you some ideas of what's possible, the kinds of use cases that our customers have been doing. So here we go. So let's go through some of the options you have with all of our product offerings, and we'll cover Studio first. So with Studio, and I'm using our architecture slides as a way to point where everything is on your desktop. If you're an author, you can create the scripts and also run them. And business users can typically run them from Excel. And all you have available is desktop scheduling. So it leverages the Windows task scheduler. And in order to execute it, the PC has to be powered on, logged into the network, You have to have everything installed on that PC that needs to be installed to run the script. And we know our customers sometimes do this on a virtual machine so that they don't have to tie up their own desktop. So what does that look like? And I'll be showing some examples live in a little bit. Here's our Excel add-in, so they'll click schedule, and then it will make you log into the SAP system and put any kind of run reasons, choose when you're going to run it, and then it lands here in this task scheduler where Windows will pick it up. Now, when it picks it up, it's going to wake up if it's powered on at that time and try to run it. If it runs, it runs. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And you'll get the results back for this particular email address. So for all of the studio customers out there, this is your one option. And it's leveraging your desktop, not a server. So we'll go to the next one. So that's user governance. And user governance provides a lot of things. It does run on a server, but it only supports desktop execution. So you can't run it on a server. You can't schedule it on a server either. So we'll go to Studio Manager, and this is what our focus will be for today. So with Studio Manager, it provides you a lot of things, and the goal is not to teach you all of those things, but just to cover it briefly if you're not familiar with it. Much like user governance, it's going to allow you to store those scripts and templates. It'll allow you to prove the scripts and templates and optionally enable approvals for the data itself. You can run all kinds of reports and track KPIs, manage licenses. The roles you're assigned will mean, will correlate to what you can do. You can set up policies in specific SAP systems to control who can do what, when, and where on each SAP system. And it also supports scheduling on the server. Again, that's something we didn't have with user governance, but we made sure to add with Studio Manager, which is our latest offering. So again, if you're going to look at this now, we have the authors here, we've got administrators of Studio Manager, and then the business users can look at those reports and KPIs and execute from Excel, much like the desktop. But Studio Manager here on the server will allow you to track and see what's going on, and there's a calendar which shows you any jobs that are scheduled. And then the work happens here on what's called a worker. So Studio Manager will wake up at the appropriate time and say, hey, go run this particular script or set of scripts. So what does that look like? On the ribbon here, you'll see now with schedule, you can schedule locally, also on the server. Choose the SAP system, you choose the date and time, and you'll run it. So it will let you run both postings and extractions. It'll run faster because it's on server. The workers typically are close to SAP, so they're going to run faster than from your desktop. Again, you'll be able to monitor what's going on and also audit it. You can also download to SQL tables. Some of our customers are doing that. They use Query to extract data and populate SQL tables. We did not have that ability in user governance. We made sure to add it with Studio Manager. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can set policies for what people can do against SAP certain days of the week, times a day, or even days of the month. You can limit how much they can do, and you can even turn on and off permissions for specific tables or transactions based on your needs. So the goal now is to show you how you can do something like that. We'll cover submitting the scripts, both a query and a transaction template. There's a process you need to go through to review and approve it so that it's in what we call production status. We'll open some templates and show you how you can choose to schedule. And then there's one that enabled data approvals. I'll show you what that looks like. So let's hop over to my virtual machine if I can find it. There it is. So hopefully everybody can see this now. So this is the home page on, I've got Evolve, so this includes workflow as well, but it looks exactly the same for Studio Manager with a few less options. So it'll show what I've been doing, any kind of counts of processes and so forth, any tasks or templates that are my favorites, any notifications. If we expand this, we'll see a number of options, and depending on your permissions, I'm in what we call an app, so this is how you can segregate those scripts and templates. So there's a number of them. I'm in mine. And then if you are an administrator, you'll have a configuration option, otherwise you won't. And for the solutions, this is where any kind of Excel workbooks, queries, transactions, and if you have full Evolve, your forms and reference data will show up here. And this is your library, basically, of scripts and templates. There's also reports and operations you can basically check to see what's going on. So that's a little bit about what it looks like. And so from an end user perspective, or let's look at the developer side first. So my goal is not to teach you how to do everything in Studio. I just have an FB01 script I already created. I've mapped it to a template. And you'll notice I have a test button, which means I can only test against a non-production SAP system. And I would only be able to run against a production system. And again, you designate that here in Evolve, and you'll actually set up your SAP credentials to those systems here as well. So you can designate a system production or non-production. So you can't run against a production system until it's been approved. So I can test it, I can validate data against a non-production system, and then I can actually run against a production system. And you'll notice now schedule on server is not yet enabled because it's not been submitted and approved. So what I need to do, there's an extra tab here for Evolve. We'll go ahead and submit it. And if you've used user governance or foundation, or you're using Evolve, it should look familiar. So single or multiple scripts, we'll choose the one. There's my template. It's going to check the template and make sure it's good. If there's a version out there already, it'll ask about creating a new version. Then you can choose the review process for the data. So by default, there's no data review. You can also use one step and what we call two steps. So one step would be where I submit it to an approver. Let's say it's Tiffany. She approves it, and she becomes the person then who posts it. Or you review it, send it to Tiffany. Tiffany approves it. It comes back to me, and I post it. And with Full Evolve, you can use a custom workflow. I'll go ahead and leave no data review right now. It's going to go into the transaction library. It's a transaction script. And then I'll choose from a list of approvers, and there's a specific group that people get assigned to be an approver. This could be your power user in the business unit. It could be somebody in IT. And we'll go ahead and click Next. You can also turn off assigning yourself. This is a demo, so I'm playing all roles. You can add any kind of supporting data that you would like. And then you'll have a quick review. So there's my script, there's my template, no data review. Sigrid will be the reviewer, no supporting documents, and this is the site and the app that it will go to. So we'll go ahead and submit. And then there's a couple of ways that you'll be notified. You'll get an email. You can look at tasks on the Evolve site. As a developer, you can also check any kind of workflow tasks here. So you can choose to, here I have to review it. I can open it and test it. I can simply go ahead and approve and say approved. And basically now this is ready. So when I come back here to my different solutions, and let's go ahead and refresh. So there is my basically solution name, and the status is production. So once it's in production, now if it meets certain criteria, you can actually run it. So in Excel, I'm already logged in, and I'm pointing to my Sigrid app. And I'll hop over to this tab in Evolve, and I can open templates, and I can choose the type, or if I just click on templates, it'll give me the option to filter it, so I'll filter it. Here you'll see my FBO1, it's in production status, and when I open it, it will open a copy, and you'll see there's just a couple of documents. It's not a big thing. Normally these would of course be empty, but I went ahead and pre-populated it. So we can come over here and actually run it. We no longer have the test button, but we can also schedule now on server. So if I click schedule on server, it's going to save a copy on the server so that I can run it. And then it will say which system. So I'm going to choose my production system. And then when do I want to run it? You can choose, a specific day and time, maybe at midnight, and click finish. Oh, sorry. It's pointing to midnight yesterday. Here we go. So midnight. And that's it. We're done. I could have also validated and simulated here, but that's the process. So that's one for transaction. I wanted to show one for query. So, I have a query here, and it's just one table. This happens to be profit centers. Set up my criteria, map it. In this case, I'm mapping it to a SQL table. And I've already run it, but I have not submitted it yet to the Studio Manager site. So if I come over here to Evolve, I'll go through a very similar process to submit. And again, we have to choose an approver, choosing myself. And since this is a mapping to a SQL table, there's no data template. But if you had a data template, that would be also included. And we'll go ahead and submit. And that approval, again, has to happen. So we'll go ahead and approve it. So now you could, if it was mapped to a template, of course, you could go ahead and choose to run it and schedule it from there. But what I'm going to do instead is this is that library of all of the queries that are on my Studio Manager site. So I can choose to open it. And if I come over here to run, now I can schedule. So I want to refresh this. It's a lookup table. So I've got some hard-coded values, so it's going to be English language. It's valid from today. So every time this runs, it's going to look at the date of today and use that as input parameters. And I can either limit it to a specific controlling area or leave it wide open. So search criteria are important when you're scheduling this. Choose the system. So in this case, it's an S/4HANA system. Go ahead and leave that. And the credentials for SQL kick in here. Oops. So I'm breaking the rules here. Typically, you would want to use a service account for anything that you're going to do recurring, and that's what I'm going to choose this time. My Windows password expires every 90 days or so, whenever IT makes me change it. So this would be a good use case for a service account. I'll go ahead and click next. And now I can choose, I can do it the one time, like with transaction. I can do it daily and choose when I start. I can do it weekly, monthly, or yearly. So for me, I want to do it daily. I'll start it tomorrow, and I'll run it at 1 o'clock, let's say, and finish. So now this is scheduled to refresh. And if I come back here to Evolve, we'll take a look at the calendar. So there's a number of what we call auto-run jobs here. So if I click on one, this one is for my journal entry post that I scheduled. And it was at midnight. So this is who created it. So you can interrogate that. If I come back, look at this. Another one, this one is my SQL query, and it's recurring. And you'll see that it's daily at 1 a.m. So You can come in here and tweak it if you need to, but basically you can keep track of what's gone on here. The other part of this is we took a look at the different scripts that are available here for transaction as well as query. If you come here now to the data files, you can basically see any of the data files that were run regardless of how they were run and take a look at the history. So let's go ahead and open another example. So I'll come in here and look at my data templates. In this case, it's transaction, and I have one that is changed for materials. So it's material creation. Again, this could be material update. So it's creating materials, and there's a number of fields included here. And then it will create info records and source lists. So because this is changed as one transaction, it can run here basically scheduled. So you come here, there's just the one script, and you can schedule on server. Again, it's going to upload a copy. I'll choose the system. And I'll choose to run this, let's say, during this webinar so we can see what the message is. Go ahead and finish. So that one has been submitted. Again, this could be creating or updating lots and lots of materials, and we have a lot of customers that do that. We go ahead and exit this, and we'll show you one of the queries, and this time it would be in a template. So we'll use the change log. And again, you'll still have the option to run it, right? It's been approved, and if you need to run it real time, you can do it right now. But you can also schedule. So we'll go ahead and schedule on server. And again, it's going to leverage search criteria. So there's a number of geeky fields, but basically it's any of the T codes that are used to update vendor from the start of the month to today. So those are ways to set up a relative date. You can also use date map by adding or subtracting number of dates. So relative dates are a good idea for these recurring queries. And I'm using just payment terms, but again, you could have a number of fields. So go ahead and click OK and choose the SAP system. And then again, I could choose to do this whenever I want. So in this case, I might want to run it daily, and go ahead and run it at midnight starting tomorrow. So now I can get this refreshed, and all I need to do is go to the server and grab it after it's done. Hopefully you're getting the idea. I wanted to show one other example that included a data file approval. So let me go ahead and find it. So this one, if I start typing, it's assets. So there it is in production. And it uses a query to populate depreciation areas, and there's a number of formulas to, basically blank out or skip or post those depreciation areas. It's also doing an acquisition, and then it's creating equipment associated with that asset, as well as adding characteristics. And all of those are chained together. So again, I've pre-populated this just for demo purposes, and I could go ahead and validate this. But you notice I have a test button, so that's the clue that it's either one, not in production status, or two, it has a data approval. So basically, open this, you could save it, populate it with data, and when you're ready, you'll come over here to submit it to people or the studio manager. So these are little simple out-of-the-box approvals, so it's auto-numbered it for you. You could overtype that. That's the solution name. And then it's either going to, it's a one-step approval, so this is where I send it to Tiffany, Tiffany approves, she could post it. In this case, we have the ability to automatically run it on the server after approval. So all she has to do is look at it, approve it. If the approval is positive, then it will automatically run on the server. Otherwise, you can choose to schedule it to run at another time. So we'll go ahead and just do an auto run. And this is where, again, you'll choose the approver. So I'll choose myself from the same approval group or a potentially different one, and then choose the system that this will go to. So this one's running on our S4HANA system. We could include supporting documents and then go ahead and submit it. So now it will kick off an out-of-the-box workflow. So this is something that comes with Studio Manager. It also comes with user governance. And I'll be able to see if I have tasks here on the site. And there's one that's a data review. I'll have an email, and we can take a look at some examples there. I can also look at my tasks here on the Evolve tab. So I'll go ahead and see, and if I'm part of multiple processes, I'll have a tab for each with all of the items that I need to review. So we'll go ahead and click to review it. I can open it up and take a look at the data that was entered for assets, take a look at the data entered for equipment, and if I'm good with it, then I can either approve or reject. So I'll go ahead and approve. And this one, it's a setting that allows you to change by the approver. Maybe the approver decides don't run this right away, they could schedule it, but the default is whatever the submitter selected. They can put in some comments and go ahead and click approve. And now that data file will run on server. As this has been going on, if we look at this particular asset example, you'll see this one is in the process of posting. If I come here to take a look at the process history, this is the workflow, and basically if we expand this, you'll see here, I approved it, this was the step, this is when it was created, when it was due, it's been approved. And then unlike foundation and user governance, all of the background information about the run is included here in this process history. So it shows whose actually credentials we're going to use. And again, this was the approver, and that it was picked up. This gets a little geeky, but this is one of the workers that is running in Studio Manager, that it started and completed. And we'll be getting email notifications. I'll show you those in a little bit. So you can basically audit, who submitted it, who approved it, if it was run, the details of the run, and then you can come in, of course, and take a look at it. So it's this one that we just did. I can go ahead and open it in Excel. Actually, yeah. So we're going to open it up, and we'll be able to see all of the messages. All right. There we go. I didn't wait long enough. So you'll see there the assets were created. If we scroll over, scroll a long way over, because there's a lot of depreciation areas. This is with acquisition. We used a BAPI script for that. And then we've got the equipment created. And we scroll over some more, you'll see the class characteristics that we added to the equipment. Again, all of this can be run on server, and in this case, there was a data file approval that went along with it. Let me hop back to my desktop. So I wanted to show these usage reports live. So there's all kinds of reports that come out of the box with Studio Manager and Evolve. I created a slightly customized one. It's pretty simple to do. Maybe we can do a webinar on that sometime. And this is basically the usage detail, and some of it's compressed. So forgive the display. It's basically the script that was run, the data file, when it was run, the system, the SAP user, the Windows user, how much data was processed, how long it took, which T code. And what you can do is basically set up filters. So it's a manual run, which again, would be open and press run on server. So I filtered by run on server. You can also run a script as a web service in a form if you have full evolve. You can also, set up filters for who, T-code, SAP systems, and so forth. So all of these will run on server for transaction or direct, and we have something similar for evolve. I'm sorry, for query. So this is one that gets run. It's one of our templates for material details. So there's that example. We'll go ahead and move forward. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. So now we wanted to touch just briefly on Foundation and Evolve. So on Foundation, you have the ability to run on server. So Foundation will schedule and track those on the server. And then we have the SAP integration server, which also has workers, much like Evolve, and that will execute it. So if we look at Evolve, again, the architecture is very similar. On the server, we have the Evolve application that will track, and you can see them all in the calendar, and you can check the status and the jobs and the history. And then it will run on basically a worker on your behalf. And it's the one that, again, will interact with SAP posting or extracting. So I just have a really small snapshot of from workflows. Sometimes from workflows, and this one's from an Excel workflow where you route around an Excel file with a workflow. You can use what's called an auto run plugin. You point it to the script. You tell it, is this a validate, or are we running on the errors or unprocessed? You can put in a runner node, but depending on which role or swim lane this lands in, it could use their credentials. And so it will post it in the background. And there's a different kind of plugin that you can use if you want to run a script that's tied to a web form. You can also do that in the background, so you don't have to have someone open the form and press a button. You can simply interrogate on the way out if there were errors or not and route it appropriately. Same thing with Evolve. This one is for the vendor payment terms update. It uses an Excel workflow. And again, it's using the auto run plugin. We'll put in the script name. It also allows for retries. I haven't mentioned that prior. The server will also retry if for some reason SAP is down. It will retry a number of times, and there's configuration settings for defaults. But if for some reason there's an issue, it will retry to complete this, and it will let you know if it doesn't. That's something that the desktop scheduling won't do. And a use case for this is the enterprise journal entry. And if you sat in on any of our finance sessions, we've talked about this before. But basically, particularly during close, but anytime during the month, multiple people might be submitting journal postings. So you complete them on your desktop and then submit them to the Foundation or Evolve site. And in this particular workflow, it's going to validate it in the background. If there's no issues, then it moves on to approvers. And you could have one or many approvers, and all of that can be data-driven based on what's in the Excel file. And once the approvers are complete, then it posts in the background using that Windshuttle Auto Run plugin in the workflow and posts it to SAP and alerts the submitter, and you could also alert the approvers what transpired. So the only active parts of this workflow are, of course, creating them and submitting them and any approvals. Everything else is done in the background through the workflow. And just a lot of hands-off. It'll free up the time for everybody racing to close the books by freeing up their desktop to create the next journal posting. Now, here's what some of the emails look like. So these happen to both be transaction scripts. So this was an update for the vendor payment terms. It's coming from the workflow, and you'll get a count of how many rows were processed and a number of errors and a link to open the file. This was for one of the journal postings that used that workflow that I just showed you. So those are all of the options that you have. Again, our focus today was on Studio Manager, but all of them support desktop scheduling. Foundation, Studio Manager, and Evolve support server-side scheduling. So some of the best practices, so for transaction or direct, the server has to know what it's going to execute. So it's either a single script or a set of linked or chain scripts are supported. So it's basically one script or a set of scripts that are linked. Again, these are just some best practices for change. If it's multiple sheets, make sure you map each to the same workbook, lock the script to the proper sheet that it needs to run on. So in my example with material crates and info records and source lists, I locked it to the proper sheet. And then you open the first script and chain them with appropriate run settings. And that'll make for a clean execution. Then you submit it to server and, of course, have them review and approve the script so they're up on the server in production status. And you have to save your SAP credentials for the SAP systems that you want to run the scripts on. For query, particularly for recurring, I touched on this earlier, you'll want to use relative dates. If it's time-based, you could potentially leverage the in operator and read criteria from the Excel file itself. As well as leverage fixed values for criteria. And then consider using a service account if it's recurring. Otherwise, passwords expire and that can interrupt that execution. Again, you'll need to store your SAP credentials for the servers that you want to run them on. And if you're going to use that service account, of course, you'll need to log in as that service account to do that scheduling. So some considerations here. I touched on some of these for query. It's a single query or chain scripts. You can schedule one at a time or recurring. Again, the script and template has to be on the server in production status. For transaction and direct, it's either a single script or chain scripts. It's one-time execution. And again, the scripts and templates have to be on the server in production status. I just want to mention here, some people have requested recurring schedules. It'd be interesting to find out your use case because most people are going to want to change that data file in order for it to run again. So that's why we have one-time execution. We'd be curious to hear about your use cases for recurring execution with the same script and data file. All of these would require that you upgrade to Studio 20 and function module 12.1 or 20 would support Studio Manager. You'll want to size the servers appropriately because those data files get stored on the servers themselves. They have to be there in order for the scheduler to pick it up and run it. And you must be able to save credentials. And a little side note for those with single sign-on, I'm aware of particularly one customer that they can store their credentials just fine, but that login ticket or token that they get from their single sign-on will time out. So you have to make sure that whatever ticket or token you get is still valid when it's time to run that particular script, whether it's a transaction, direct, or query script. So for single sign-on, make sure that you take that into account. And for running on the server on Studio Manager and Evolve and Foundation, notifications go to the scheduler of the job when it's done. So now comes the time of questions, and I've been seeing a lot of little pop-ups. So Tiffany, do we have any questions?
We do. So our first question is about that email notification and how we add the ability for an attachment.
Yeah,
so like the scheduled file.
Yeah, so currently, let me hop over here. So you'll see these are all messages. So this is where I approved the scripts in Studio for transaction and query. This was for the change log. So this ran successfully, and you'll notice, I'll tell you how much data was extracted, but it came to me as the scheduler. for the asset creation, which had a data file review, that has the option to attach it. So if there's a data file review, the 1-step or the 2-step, there's an option to attach it. Otherwise, there isn't. And again, they're all coming to just me. So currently, the scheduler is notified, and there isn't an option to attach unless you're using a data file approval. So those are currently some limitations. Feel free to contact support and open a support ticket for an improvement request, or there's places on the community side as well to make those requests.
All right, thank you. Next question is whether there's any file size limitation.
File size, I mean, in general, not that I'm aware of. It may be that, you know, Excel, of course, has limits on how much data, like 1 million rows. I haven't heard that we've had any limitations on Studio Manager, but that's something that I can follow up on, or you can reach out and we can check into it with you.
And I think as far as like the attachment piece of it, it would be based on the mail server limitation.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah. So for anytime you do get an email attachment, like with the data file review, it would be up to your email server. I know ours is limited to 20 meg or 20, yeah, 20? Not 20 meg, 20 gig. So. 20 meg.
Yeah. And there's a couple questions about the infrastructure and system requirements. So I don't know if you want to just show where that is on help.
Yeah. So this is part of the online help. So this was just online help for Studio Manager, but there's also a place where you can look at the prerequisites. I also wanted to, while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and show. There's links in here on how to schedule a transaction run and how to schedule a query run as well. We'll go ahead and include a link to the prerequisite page when we send out the Q&A. And you will get copies of this. I didn't mention it earlier. I'm sorry. You'll get a link to the recording, copy of the deck, which will include some screenshots, and answers to the Q&A.
Next question is regarding the server capability in Foundation. Mm-hmm. Which version of Foundation is required for that capability?
I think we've always had that capability in Foundation, so in version 11 at least.
So I think it looks like perhaps this person has maybe user governance only.
Yeah,
so that might be the.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, user governance only supports the desktop scheduling. That's why when we created these new releases with Studio Manager and Evolve, we wanted to make sure we removed those limitations. When you have a server, why not support server-side scheduling? So a good option for you would be to consider upgrading to Studio Manager.
And then there's a question about if they're currently using Studio, what would be the path to move to Studio 20 with either Studio Manager or Evolve?
Yeah, so you know, the server components would have to be installed, and what you would do is part of what I showed in the demonstration. So you would want those scripts to be submitted to the server site, whether it's Studio Manager or Evolve, and you go through an approval process. If you have a lot of scripts, you could turn off that approval process while you're migrating and have them automatically go to production status. But there would be a step there to basically submit them and have them then live on the server.
And regarding costs and things like that, we would push toward contacting sales, correct?
Yeah, you would definitely want to contact your account rep And we'd be happy to, do a personalized demonstration if necessary and talk about any kind of pricing. Yep.
There's also a question about whether the recording will be available from today's webinar.
It will.
It will, yes. You can find that under windshuttle.com resources, and then you'll see webinars recorded.
Right.
And you'll find our previous webinars as well. There's a lot of great videos out there from previous.
Yeah, it's under here. There's upcoming and recorded. There's a lot of great recorded ones as well. So that'll be here, but you'll get an email. And if a colleague registered but wasn't able to attend, they'll also get the email.
So I think that's it for now on questions. We'll also be publishing the document with all questions and answers with the video.
We will. So just a quick reminder to go to the community site and sign up if you haven't already. I'm pretty active out there. There's over 3,000 members and that keeps growing. So posting questions, seeing some of our online training modules, there's a link there. And if you don't have access to that, you can open a sport ticket to get access. There's also all kinds of templates and that keeps growing. They're basically just examples of scripts and Excel templates to get you started. And of course you can customize those. So we also make announcements like talking about this particular webinar. So you'll see lots of great information out there, and you can, of course, share information and help each other as colleagues out there in the community. And if you want to learn more, of course, you can go to the .com site. I already showed the link. There's a link for learning more about Studio Manager, how to run on server from transaction as well as query. Now these are bookmarked for for version 20 and Studio Manager, but you can also find links out there for the same on Foundation as well. So that's it today. Thank you very much for attending and for your questions, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.